who is the curator and staged the show, will introduce very shortly the Sport Artist of the Year, Stephen Holland. I really don't want to embarrass Stephen. Steve, that's a good-looking necktie you have there. You got to understand that he's never worn a tie in his life. He's doing this as a favor to me. Before I turn Stephen over to you, I have a very pleasant task, I think, if I could find some of these people. But the people who run the academy, the institution, are the board of trustees. And we have an annual meeting in January, and I suspect that if you receive these people very nicely, they won't raise the tuition, which is one of their functions and one of the things we talked about. But let me introduce the board to you. Why don't you just walk up here for a second? Come here and hug me. I'm not sure where the chairman is, but we'll get started and get out of here. We have some of the board busy, but we'll get on with this and then get back to what we're doing. The first gentleman alongside of Steve Holland, the artist, is Phil Hunt. He is an executive vice president with Morrison's. He is their legal counsel, former professional baseball player. Phil is, Morrison's, by the way, owns Ruby Tuesdays that you people sort of, I think they have paid for it, by the way. The man alongside of Phil with that looks like Santa Claus is Bob Block. Bob is the first chairman of the board of trustees. He's been with the institution for 22 years. Lives in Los Angeles. He's a very creative man. Alongside of him is Dr. Wukash. Dr. Wukash goes back with my wife and I to building the first sports academy that I ever built in Indonesia. He was a naval officer at that time with the Peace Corps that I brought to that country, and actually taught anatomy and physiology. Don is one of the most renowned heart surgeons in this country, the last man who ever worked for DeBakey. And Cooley is a link man, which took some talent. The next man here is Al Sinclair. Al is the director of city development for the city of Mobile, and has played a vital role in the art show. This young lady here has been a partner of mine for 4 years, whatever. Anyhow, that's my other half. She's the person who keeps me in line if I'm ever in line. Sally. This gentleman here, like Bob Block, is a founding member of the Board of Trustees. We were at the University of Wisconsin together. He is now the head of investment for Green Bay Packaging in Green Bay, Wisconsin. He loves coming down here at this time of the year. It was 40 below zero there yesterday, or wind chill of 80 below. Last but not least is the chairman of the board, Jim Hasser. Jim is the president of American Tennis, probably the largest tennis court builder, sport facilities builder in the country. Sits on the executive committee and is just invaluable to the organization. There are others around here somewhere, but I can't seem to find them. With that, I think if you congratulate them, tuition will stay at the same level that it is. Huh? Brian, will you come up, please? We're going to leave you. Steve, thank you once again. You went at noon, come have lunch with us, okay? This show here, by the way, people, is one of the most powerful art shows that we've ever had. And I really would be remiss if I didn't tell you this, but those boxing figures and that art back there and from over there all the way around that corner have all been donated to the Academy by Steve Holland. That's very, very generous. This original of Evander Holyfield was painted during the earthquake in Los Angeles. In fact, it's still wet. He went outside to finish the painting. All of the art that is in the lobby has also been donated to the Academy by Steve, including the Gretzky painting, but I'll let Brian tell you about it. Clearly, he captures the emotion of time, which is what sport art is all about. And I think if you can get this man warmed up, you'll find this to be a very exciting convocation. See you later.
Thank you, Dr. Brzanic. I just wanted to, tell you a little bit about, the sport art here in the American Sport Art Museum. We've always found that to be a natural mix with sport. Sport and art are both forms of expression. A lot of people are slow to see that connection. If I can get this just okay, and from the first Olympic Games that were held in 1896, art contests and exhibitions were held in conjunction with the athletic events. And I know we feel that I myself, and I know Dr. Brzanic and I and Stephen talked about this the other night, that that art itself, originated with sport. Your very first depictions on cave walls, were basically of the hunt, the cavemen hunting the saber-toothed tiger and what have you. So we have a strong conviction that sport art is actually the origin of art. But as you look around the Academy, obviously we are dedicated to trying to develop the American Sport Art Museum and Archives. We're also committed to paying tribute to those who have best captured sport through their artistic talents, and we like to pay tribute to their contribution to sport art and society. So obviously each year we select a sport artist of the year. This is it's a very prestigious honor. As you look back over the history of the people who have been honored here at the Academy, we have had really some outstanding world-renowned artists, and we feel that Stephen is a very talented artist who only adds to this list of prestigious artists who come from all over the world. So, without further ado, please welcome Stephen Holland. I'm going to turn it over to Stephen, but I wanted to ask him if he could, before we get involved with too many questions, I'd like him to start by telling us how he got involved in sport art, why sport art as opposed to painting grapes and wine bottles and what have you. How did you actually get started in sport art?
Okay. Good morning. I'd probably be a lot more at ease if this was an easel and a paintbrush. But here I am. How did I get started in sports art? Well, being a starving, or not quite so starving artist, but certainly an artist not able to afford models, I figured that I might get away with working from magazine photos of boxers. So I went out and bought a bunch of boxing magazines and started drawing from the photographs to do some figure drawing studies from. And it turned out to be a pretty exciting thing. In fact, I started putting the gloves and the trunks on them and painting the boxing scenes. I was handicapped as a child, so I never got to participate very much in sports, although all my family was involved in it and my friends. So I didn't know too much about it. But so here I am doing these boxing illustrations, and just for fun. And then I started enjoying it so much that I continued on and started doing some paintings. I had always liked football a bit, so I decided to continue and do a little football illustrations and do a few football paintings, purely for myself. And so then I started having football magazines and boxing magazines around the house, none of which I had ever read before or even looked at. In my spare time, I started reading the magazines. Once I started reading the magazines, I got to know a little bit more about the athletes, what they were doing, what was going on with them, what the sports were about. I got more interested. And it just kept evolving from there, very simply. But I think more important than, for me anyway, than how I got started was up until that time I had not been a particularly disciplined person. I hadn't, in fact, I had no idea about what it took to really be successful in anything. And here I am reading these stories about all these athletes, you know, all these kids that are just playing ball, and the amount of dedication and discipline and commitment that they had to put in just to achieve the slightest bit. And it really opened my eyes. And I came to the conclusion that in order to be successful in art, that was kind of the discipline that I had to have. So I didn't have a coach at the time or a trainer or anything else or even any idea. And so I just set about trying to learn from what I was reading. As it turned out, my first role model was my own daughter, because she was she showed and rode Western horses. And by the time she was 17, she was a national champion. So when I got involved in sports art, she was 7 or 8. But, and started to try and learn how to discipline myself. But by the time she was 14 or 15, I was, you know, she was the only person I knew personally who was working on that kind of level. So I just kind of watched her for a while and learned from her. Ever since then, I've been doing predominantly sports art. I got a big break, which made a big, well, actually, there were two things that made a big difference in my life. 6 years ago, when I met my current wife, Janelle, who's sitting in the back there, I realized that this was, I had actually known her before, and I realized that this was a very classy lady, and someone I really wanted to spend a lot of time with, if you know, not the rest of my life, which, as it turned out, it is. I realized I had to rise to the occasion and work harder than I ever did before. So that kind of inspiration really helped me. I don't know if this is making any sense, but, and then secondly, several years after that, by a string of coincidences, I was commissioned by the LA Kings to do a series of paintings for their offices. And it was really my first outing with a professional team. Another of my daughter's professional athletes on a high caliber. And it just kicked me into another gear. It was really terrific. I probably have a lot more to say, but it might be easier if there were some questions.
Who's your favorite boxer?
My favorite boxer? That's hard to say. I mean, my favorite probably all-around athlete is Muhammad Ali, and he's a boxer. The reasons that I like Muhammad Ali is we kind of grew up together. Muhammad Ali are pretty much the same age. And in fact, when I met him, I told him that. He looked at me and he said, "Boy, you must be getting old." But he was, it was for who he was. And athletes, before Muhammad Ali, in general, athletes, however they lived their lives, what they put out in public was, you know, I drink milk and eat Wheaties and have a crew cut, and this is who I am, and, you know, everything is just hunky-dory. Muhammad Ali just broke all that down. He just was who he was. What I like about him is he's a man, to my feelings, of complete integrity. I think that he always had a lot of confidence in himself. I think he had a tremendous amount of ability. And just who he was. Now, as far as boxing itself, there are other boxers that I might like. Let's say Marvin Hagler, just for the way he looked. I'm a very visual person. I like Roberto Duran's macho, even though probably wouldn't like it in person, but the image of it is kind of fun to watch. I don't know if I would agree with it in practice, but just as something to look at, it's kind of enjoyable.
Steve, what formal training did you have in art? Did you attend art schools in New York or college or anything?
Yeah. I wanted to be an artist ever since I could hold a pencil. So I was always at it. I was the class artist in public school. In junior high school, I was in a special art class. Being fortunate or whatever to live in New York City, when I went to high school, I was able to go to a high school where they had a half a day of art every single day of the week. So that was a tremendous amount of training. And it was a school that didn't necessarily train you to go to college, but to train you to just go out and work in the field as a commercial artist. They had a lot of professionals working there. And then I went to several colleges after that. So I did have a lot of formal training, which I kind of forgot about after school, but have been calling upon in recent years more and more.
Have you ever sketched your daughter using this
I've sketched my daughter, but not as not when she was doing athletics. I've sketched her, and now I'm trying to get her. I sketched her when she was a little kid in her cowboy hat. Now that she's turned into a beautiful young woman, I'm trying to get her to post some photographs so I can do a painting of her. But that's hard to get her to nail her down.
Just as a prediction, how do you see sport art as a art in itself, like in the next 10 years, becoming a greater part of like sport commercialism, and different like athletic shooters taking over in the sporting industry? How do you see sport art fitting into something similar?
Well, I've never quite thought of sport art in so much in commercial terms. You know, most of the sport art that I've looked at is fairly much illustration type of work. I guess I hadn't thought that it was going to change very much, because what I tried to do was really change it, was to do something different in sports art. I don't know if this is going to quite answer your question, but when I got involved in doing sports art, the more involved I got, I was thinking it mainly, I mean, yes, I needed to make a living and I wanted people to like my work and buy it and use it, etc. But I thought of it mainly from the point of view of a creative artist. I like to consider myself a contemporary artist. And run into the problems with that is sports art, contemporary, etc. But I've tried to, sports is obviously the biggest thing in the country these days. And what I've tried to do is to understand what's really wonderful about it, what's exciting about it, and take my own absolute awe of the abilities, what I consider superhuman abilities of the athlete, and to show that. Okay? I can't, to answer your question, I can't answer you where I think it's going to go. All I can answer is what I would like to do with it. And what I would like to do with it is express what the athlete, what it really is to be out there playing the game, as much as I can conceive it. That when you see a boxing match on television, people have no idea of the power of the punches. You know, maybe they have a little understanding when they see someone knocked down, or if they understand that a football player is hurt. But there's, to reach the pinnacle of being a professional athlete, I personally believe that you have to have not only superhuman talents, but your physical body has to be so far above the norm that it could take punishment that even anybody else could train a lifetime for, and still not be able to take that punishment. And that kind of power is what I'm trying to show in my paintings, and I'm hoping that to make a contribution that way, for culture in some way.
What plans, if any, do you have for the Winter Olympics and after that?
Excuse me?
What plans?
Just stand up so everybody can hear you.
What plans do you have for the Winter Olympics, if any, and after that in the future for paintings or?
I have, actually at the moment, I have no plans for the Winter Olympics, although I'm working on, we're working on promotions for several projects for the Summer Olympics in Atlanta. My main plans are to continue to paint what I would like to paint and sell my paintings through galleries. However, I think the best answer to that question, may I introduce my wife? Janelle, could you come up here? Janelle is my wife and my business partner. There was a time when, after we started painting, that we decided to go into the business of publishing lithos. And so Janelle and I got together to do this, you know, as a team, as a partnership. And so she started to handle all of the business things actually all of the business in my career, which gives me more time to spend in the studio. In fact, someone that helps us with our marketing, christened her the president of the company and me the chairman of the museum. So as far as what projects we have upcoming, maybe Janelle can answer that. Put you on the spot.
Well, it's always hard to say because when something's in negotiation, you never know whether it's going to happen or not. But as Stephen mentioned, we have a presentation into the Olympic Committee. We are currently speaking again to Wayne Gretzky's agent. We'd like to bring out the ultimate Gretzky action portrait. And make it a lithograph. Because that's how we multiply Stephen's artwork and make it accessible to a lot of people. Because a painting like this is very special, but not everyone can own it. And to broaden the commercial aspect of Stephen's work, lithographs, stereographs, and woodcuts are all reproductions of original. That makes it more accessible. More
We're also thinking about coming out with a line of lithographs that are generic for art, not any particular athlete or team.
The slide over here, this painting, it's very popular. We've been talking about doing what's called a gallery poster. Stephen's artwork is on display in approximately 8 galleries across the country. They're called Diane galleries. If you go into Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco, New Orleans has a Diane gallery in Royal Street, New York and Soho. So one of our projects is to get a gallery poster that's Diane gallery in Stephen Holland. So if you like that one, the slide is set up to that one. And there's a lot of work involved in the marketing of an artist. Like Stephen needs to be free to paint because there's a lot of negotiations, putting together presentations for people. We have a book that probably bring out is that it was here for the art show last night. We do reproductions, so we do laser prints, and that way we can send out a lot of images to different people. We print the lithographs, most of them, or some people commission Stephen to print. Like 3 of these boxes, not Muhammad Ali, but Chavez, De La Hoya, and Sugar Ray Leonard, were commissioned by a private company, and they did the printing, and we, get together and meet with the athlete and sign, have what's called signing. So that's, besides our own marketing and our own printing, we do work with other people. Any questions?
Did Evander Holyfield tour your gallery yesterday, and did he have any comments about either his painting or any of the other boxes?
Evander was here for a short time, and we came in, and he was crowded. We came in for the luncheon yesterday, and he was crowded with a bunch of people. So unfortunately, we never got to speak to him. But what I had heard was that, yes, he very much liked his painting and wanted it. And he above all wanted to buy the Muhammad Ali. So yes, he toured the gallery, and yes, he was particularly attracted to the boxers. He loved his own painting, and he absolutely fell in love with Muhammad Ali's painting.
But it's not the same.
But it's not the same.
Does the kind of sport that the athletes involved in dictate what media you use?
The media that I use in general is oil paint. The sport really doesn't have anything to do with it. Okay. The first question is, recently I actually started sketching as much as I painted. I hadn't done that before. But recently I just got a big roll of butcher paper and a big table, leaned it up against my easel, some big brushes and some, you know, some paint, and just started sketching as big as I paint. It was a lot of fun. The other thing is to answer your question, I try to give the feeling, as much of a real feeling as I can. Unfortunately, in an action picture, you have to do this from photographs if you paint realistically, because you can't get the athlete or anybody else to pose in that position. And even if you could, it wouldn't have the feeling it did when he actually did it. Sometimes I meet the athletes beforehand, but not having anything to do with the painting, just in a reception situation, or sometimes I'll meet them because I do a lot of my own photography on the field. And so I'll meet the athletes there or talk to them in the locker room afterwards. But that's primarily just to get a feeling of who the athlete is. But when I'm doing an action portrait, what I'm trying to do is show what he is playing the game and the feeling that anybody else would get from him throwing a pass, how he does it. So it's not very necessary to meet the athlete in person as to get a close-up feeling of him performing. Any other questions?
How long did it take you to do the portrait of Ali?
Somebody asked me that about Evander Holyfield yesterday. They both took the same time, 50 plus years.
Marketing aspect. Sport is merely venue. You find a lot of people who are sports fans, and you have to think, how do I approach that market? But then you have people who are also, fans of art. So how do you reach those people? It's really a marketing challenge. We were fortunate enough to have an intern with us last year, and she spent 12 weeks with us. In sports marketing. It was a little bit unusual for her because usually in sports marketing, the marketing team, this is a sports-related product. So that was a different type of marketing.
Are there any other artists
I could go on for hours about that. I love Picasso. I love Michelangelo. I love an artist called Modigliani. I love Van Gogh for the expressiveness that he put in his work. I love Picasso for the absolute creativity that he put into his work. I mean, if you look at, just as an example, if you look at a Picasso painting and he has two people in there and their four hands, he may paint them all like nubs, but every nub is different. Just every line is different in his painting. I love that about him. I love Michelangelo for the spirituality that just pours out of his work. And I just could go on and on and on. Anybody else? I just started working with the Kings. I was very fortunate in that fellow we worked with there, who was their senior vice president, really had a background in art. His family collected art for years and had some great art in it. So he really appreciated what I was trying to do. Even though are a lot of great sports artists around, painting in various ways. The predominant at that time type of art that the teams knew of was kind of montage. It was very tight, realistic, and they'd show the head of a player, and then they'd show him in his away uniform in an action shot, and his home uniform in an action shot. And that's what everybody was going for, and everybody was liking. So he liked what I did, and they commissioned me to do a lot of work for their offices. And then he came up with the idea of creating a limited edition lithograph that was more based towards fine art, because they're King's upscale fans. And it's a little known fact, but hockey has, even though considered a blue-collar sport, has the wealthiest fans per capita of all the sports, the major sports. And when we did the litho, they anointed me the official King's artist.
The picture, the painting of the slide there, who's that portraying?
I don't know who it portrays, because when they were two players. They were not any big names, and what I tried to do was even make them not even look who they were. I just really wanted to get a feeling of him sliding into home plate. There's a very interesting story about that, the photograph, which I didn't show because it wasn't what I was trying to portray. I wanted to portray more of the power of him sliding in. But they're both looking in the opposite directions. The reason they're looking in the opposite directions is there was a ball, the baseball, was on the floor in between them that you could see in the photograph. And why they're looking that way is that the catcher was busy looking for the baseball. And the fellow that just slid in was looking at the referee in amazement because the referee called him out and he knew the ball was on the floor.
Stephen, I'm curious. I saw the other day where, like, Vanna White had sued a Japanese company for using a likeness of her in a commercial. And I'm just curious, when you set out to paint an athlete, do you have to have their permission? What laws, cover such type of a venture where you set about to paint a likeness of an athlete?
There's no problem in painting the likeness of an athlete, or even using the logo of a team in an original painting. But as soon as you start to do a print of it for commercial purposes, as soon as you reproduce it for sale, then you need licensing from the athlete, you need licensing from any team that you use. If you sell it out of a short distance from where the team is located, then you need league licensing. It becomes very complicated and very costly. What I do need to get permission from is whenever I use a photograph from a photographer where it's not my own photograph, we always contact the photographer whenever it's possible, whenever we can locate him, and get his permission and make an agreement upon how much he wants for us to use the photograph.
And that's a particular challenge with the slide, because the slide was taken from a photograph that appeared in a very old book that was in the Santa Barbara Public Library. We can't seem to find the book at the moment. We're afraid that they took it off, so we're still looking for it, but we do need to acquire the rights to that photograph before we can duplicate it.
Most of your work, like for example, the Gretzky painting, is a lot of done through videotaping, or is it mostly photographs? So how do you
I usually work from photographs. One of the things that I'm looking into at present is they are now able to transfer videos into 8x10 photos, and I haven't seen any yet, but supposedly they have amazing detail. The Gretzky painting out front, what I did was, because I couldn't find a photograph of that particular shot, and I wanted to show that particular shot, I got the video footage of him. I couldn't find a photograph that I liked. So I got the video footage of it, and wound up working with some pretty blurry photographs that I was able to take from my television set. What we had to do was take we took the video and brought it to a place that worked with videos and got the shot we wanted, and then they put it on a still video. They just ran it so that the video was running, but the picture didn't move at all. And so then I took a photograph. Then I set that up in my camera up in front of my television set and photographed it. So it was kind of blurry, but I think, I guess as we all know, technology improves by a second.
Did he ask for compensation to sign it, or is that?
Well, when we did the lithograph back there, we were compensating him for signing that. So we spent the afternoon together, and we brought that painting along, and we asked him if he would sign it, and he just signed it. He loved it. He was more than happy to sign it. Aha. Two ways, my prices and her prices.
Difficult things like that. The first thing we consider is like, wow, how many square inches do we have to do? How many figures are needed? Is it tight pieces? Is it loose pieces? And then the element is, do we love it? And I think that's where Stephen's thing is, he'll come in and he'll say, I think this one should be. Then we also cross-reference it with the people at a gallery that are dealing with clients and other art. So it's not an exact science, where a lot of gets hurt.
Sometimes it's a little painful in the pricing, because you look at a painting and you might say, well, I feel this painting is worth X amount of dollars. You know, and that's, you know, what you feel is a fair price for the painting. But then when you have to sell it through your gallery, you realize you're getting, you know, 1/3 or 1/2 X. You know, so immediately you feel you're getting underpaid. But this is a reality. This is what exists. So you just kind of have to balance that and forge ahead. I haven't yet. I've photographed a little bit of college, but the reason at the moment, okay, and I just say at the moment, you know, being an artist, unless I get a commission to do something, I kind of try and follow my heart, you know, and that changes. That changes all the time. But at the moment, and for a few moments, as it's been, what has really intrigued me is the professional athlete and the power that the professional athlete has, the ferocity of competition. In fact, we had a show in San Francisco and we called it The Fury of the Game. And the paintings were all geared just to show the impact, the power of the sport. That's partially the reason why I haven't done any paintings to date except one of female athletes. Not that I'm prejudiced, and I sure hope that I'm not a male chauvinist to any degree. But it seems to me that at the moment, for what I'm trying to show, which is the power the male athlete has that, and that if I'm trying, you know, to a larger degree than amateurs, or a larger degree than the female athlete has it. And we have a tenant where we live, and she's a female athlete, and I've spoken to her about it, and asked her questions, and asked her what she felt the differences were, because I really would like to paint the female athlete. I feel, just my conscience is bothering me about it. But it's not a prejudice, it's just, you know, this year I'm into painting apples, next year I'm into painting oranges, because I now want to show what the orange looks like.
You have a lot of boxers in the LA teams. How did you get Shaq and Yamir involved?
The Shaq was a commission. I also have a lot of other paintings too, but this is what you're seeing here. Shaquille was a commission from the people who were publishing his Rookie of the Year litho. So that's how I did that. Got the commission to do that. And you have to understand the reason that I hadn't done others of Shaq, because I guess if any athlete, you know, personifies power, he's one of them. It was just I have not been able to find or take a photograph yet that shows that. It really shows that. So I did the best I could, but that was a commission, and so was the Yaramir Yaga. Do I see another? Actually,
I painted the frame.
actually, my wife has quite a bit of artistic talent, but she refuses to own up to it. But sometimes we'll sit down and try to figure something out. And she'll say, well, why don't you try this, honey, and do a little sketch? And I'll go, that's it, there's all the feeling. Now I just have to put in the details. Anything else? There's a little story that I guess there's a lot of little stories that I've learned about, you know, in watching athletes. There's a lot of room there for heroism. One that comes to mind just now is Joe Namath, who was a quarterback for the New York Jets. Wonderful, fantastic player. They said he might have been the greatest of all time if his knees weren't so bad. He played with braces on his knees. And one day, I heard him being interviewed when he was well on in his career. The reporter asked him, he said, how come you never say anything about your legs? How come you never talk about the pain and everything that you're playing with? And he looked at the guy and he said, are you kidding me? He said, you should see the injuries that the fellows on this team are playing with. He said, I'm the quarterback, so people, you know, look at me and you know, all the attention is on me. He said, but I don't play with half the pain that these other guys are playing with, and I would never dare speak about my legs and what I'm going through. Those kind of stories have always been inspiring to me. You have to remember, I came late into discipline, and I really use, I mean, I love reading stories about what coaches tell their players. I'm really hungry for that. One of the things that meant a lot to me with Evander Holyfield, aside from feeling the earthquake a little bit, getting an idea of what it might be like to be in the ring with him. Evander Holyfield in 1984 was in the Olympics in Los Angeles. And of all the boxers that we sent, he was the only one that didn't win a gold medal. He won a silver medal. It was a technicality, and myself, I think with 99% of everybody else in all the countries of the world felt he was wrong and cheated out of that gold medal. But he was the only one not to win a gold medal. He's also the only one that anyone knows of today that was in the 84 Olympics. He also, when he lost his first fight to Riddick Bowe, he lost his championship, he was considered to be, well, he wasn't really that good a fighter anyway. And that, you know, he would never win it back. He shouldn't even try. It was time for him to retire. And he just won the title back. And the story that brings to mind, which has always meant so much to me personally, was this. There was a television show years ago called Kung Fu. It was about a, for all you young people, it was about an Oriental, Anglo-Oriental fellow who was raised in the Orient and now is roaming around the 1800s West. And he was a Kung Fu expert. He was raised in a monastery with all the mysticism involved in it. And in this show, they were constantly having flashbacks to the lessons that he learned in the monastery. And the lesson that struck me personally the most was he was once in the courtyard having a Kung Fu contest with another disciple. And when the contest, the master was standing on the steps watching. No one else was around. And when no one else was around, so it was just them. When the contest was over, they both bowed to each other, and then he turned around and faced the master and bowed to the master, and they stood there, and there was just all this silence. And all this silence. And finally, David Carradine started him. He looked at the master and he said, well? The master said, well, what? And he said, well, who won? Who was victorious and who was defeated? The master looked at him and said, he looked at both of them and said, it is not who is victorious and who is defeated that counts. It's what one does with it that matters. And that, I think, Evander Holyfield is a prime example of that. And that has always been a guiding example of my life.
We're going to make a couple announcements, and then Stephen and Janelle will remain here. If anybody wants to come up and ask you questions personally, we'll go ahead and have them come up.
I just want to say thank you all for making the patience, having the patience.
I think one of the things we talk about at the Academy a lot is teamwork, and it's nice to see Janelle and Stephen being a team. Next week's convocation is Dr. DeSchreiber. That will be on mentorships, internships, and practicums. For all those students that are new this quarter, one of the things he would like to have you do is purchase your mentorship, internship, practicum handbook and come to the convocation next Friday at 10 o'clock. The 24th of this month is the last day to drop add a course with a refund. So you can see Sandy Myers and take care of that if you want to drop or add a course. On the 28th, there will be the MAT test given from